None of us are solitary. And because we need a whole host of things to kind of create us, make us, the moment they're not there, we fall apart. That's our condition. Now, because we need things to survive, it means that we have no choice but to desire them. And whenever you desire anything, you have no choice but to expect. You plan. And oftentimes those plans don't pan out the way that you and I want. There is a verse in the biggest chapters, longest chapters in the Quran, Surah Baqarah, the cow, that if you want a very, very simple definition of what it means to be human, is an entity who is born of desires. There is also another component that makes life so miserable. I am from Iran. Iran has a culture, Iran has a history. I have no choice but to inherit that culture. I have no choice but to adopt some of those traditions. I have parents. They have conditioned me, programmed me. I have lived in a society that tells me who I am. I am the product of my culture, of my society, of my parents, of my advertisements. So when you ask me, Amir, who are you? I am my culture. I am my society. I am my desires. There is no stability to me. I am on the inside like a Costco. I have all these aisles, all these shelves, all these products and merchandises. When you ask me who I am, I can't give you a definitive answer. And just in case any of you insult my culture, I will punish you. Why? Because I'm attached to my culture. I'm attached to my parents. If any of you offend my parents, I will punish you. We are reactive animals. We don't understand anything. All we do is react. There is a man by the name of Gurdjieff. Some of you have heard of him. I know that Joyce is in love with him. If not, you should be. He's long dead. He has a nice, bald head, great mustache. He is perhaps one of the best teachers that life and history have ever created. He's a hands-on teacher. He knows the futility of simply sitting back and having conversations. He knows the futility of inspiration. He knows the futility of ideas if they're not brought down and applied. He has two concepts. One is called essence, the other is called personality. All of us have an essence. Well, it needs to be created, but let's just, not to make things too complicated, all of us have a soul, but that soul is under an avalanche of personality. Personality is what I've just described to you. that I am a part of my parents, I'm a part of my culture, part of my history, part of my experiences. And essence will never get a chance to breathe. Essence will never get a chance to come out and show its face. It's like Pegasus, you know. My personality has been forcing me to walk on the ground for so many decades that I don't even remember, I don't even feel that I have wings. And what Gurdjieff does is he has a cult as a school. He chooses his students very, very carefully. And once he accepts them, he brings about a good amount of pain on their physical body, emotional body, intellectual body. And because they adore him, because they love him, because they are dependent on him, because they see him as a transformative teacher, they have no choice but to hang out with him some more. And eventually what happens is that you're able to stand outside of your familial conditioning, outside of your cultural conditioning, outside of your social conditioning, and look at who and what you are from the outside and realize that no one can really touch you, that no one can really define you. You have figured out who and what you are. You are not your culture. There is a great book, for those of you who are interested, by a man named Jiddu Krishnamurti. And I had the pleasure of not working with him, but kind of just being around him for a couple of years. He has this book called Dialogue with Oneself. It's maybe 5 or 6 pages. It's about love, where he says, okay, well, is love about jealousy? Is love about loneliness? Is love about anger? Is love about possessiveness? And he approaches love in a via negativa, that let us remove everything that is toxic, that is poisonous, and figure out what love is. You know, Krishnamurti, of course, is wrong about this, but nevertheless, it's a good way of kind of approaching who and what you are. Remove all the things that you think you may not be. In other words, there's a guy by the name of Martin Heidegger. If you had given Amir Sabzavari parents in the 21st century, if Amir Sabzavari was born in America, if Amir Sabzavari was not a man but a woman, Amir Sabzavari would be a different human being, which means that Amir Sabzavari is nothing but an accident. I am nothing but a collection of accidental forces that have made me into who and what I am. So, remember the difficulty of following the path of the Buddha, that you have to kind of figure out what the self is. And the only way you can figure out what the self is like an onion. You got to remove all these layers from yourself. You're not a man, you're not a woman, you're not American, you're not a Persian. You're not your beliefs, you're not your social conditioning, you're not your social structure, you're not your culture, you're not your history, you're not your experiences, none of that stuff. And if you're none of that stuff, well, how the hell do you function without that GPS? You have to be at a standstill, and you have to allow yourself to become a vehicle to forces you don't see, you don't understand. Okay? Now, the other thing is, the other reason as to why we desire, why we are miserable, if you're not right now miserable, you will be, trust me. Life does not spare anyone. So, one of the most miserable way you can kind of understand how desire works is the following. Remember what the Buddha, what Siddhartha went through. Things are new, things get old, things get sick, and things die. This is my 5th cup of coffee for the day. The first one was really, really good. Yeah, maybe tomorrow, but thank you. Thank you. The first cup was really, really good. The second cup was okay. The third cup, I tolerated it. The fourth cup, I just made it because I was bored. The fifth cup, it's just there. When the class is over, I'm just going to toss it. How can anyone survive life with understanding how desires work? It's just a matter of time before a new desire becomes an old desire. And then that desire begins to sicken you. And then that desire becomes completely irrelevant to you. We have all desired new shoes, new clothes, new companions, new this, new that. They took so much time, so much energy, so much life from us. In the end, what exactly did they give us? A few minutes of pleasure, a few minutes of happiness, and eventually we had to witness that they're no longer that interesting. And then the awful part is that you realize that they're just kind of cluttering your space. Once in a while, when you drive around town and you realize that someone is having a garage sale, don't be so shallow. These are like 60, 70-year-old people who are putting everything they have on the pavement for people either to take or buy. But you know, they took money, all the stuff that you see on their driveway. They took energy, they took time, they took people's lives. And now, at a certain time, they look at their life and they realize, we don't want this table, and we don't want this, and we don't want that. Ultimately, what the Buddha says, most of our life is eventually on the pavement for sale. If you're single, next time you're out at a coffee shop and a man or a woman looks at you and you're inspired, keep in mind what the Buddha said. You're only inspired because it's new. But go back to the cell phone that you bought. Go back to the shoes that you bought. A human being is no different. Eventually, you will grow sick of them. And eventually, you will plan to be out of that relationship. Even if you don't divorce, you find that person somewhat irrelevant. But what can we do? We are engaged animals. We have no choice but to desire. That's what our organism demands. But here's the trick. Have desires, be attached. But have desires and be attached to the right things. They will give you a longer shelf life. And that is what the trick is. For those of you, again, who have bought this book or are interested, or maybe one day you will read this book, I remember one day Chris had asked me a question about Carlos Castaneda, that the stuff that he wrote, he's got like 50 books out there, and supposedly he worked with this man named Don Juan. Is his story true? What he went through, those books, did he really experience all those stuff? Or are they just fake, as most people say? Do you know how difficult it is to create a life that is magical? I don't know if Don Juan existed. I don't know if Carlos Castaneda actually worked with a man. I don't know if Carlos Castaneda actually had those experiences, but what remains true for me at least is he created for himself a life whose shelf life was about 50 years. And that's a good life. That's a good desire to have. If your desires are related to the iron stage, you will be disappointed. If your desires are related to the bronze stage, you have to spend some more time and energy, but eventually they will disappoint you. If your desires are related to the silver stage, it is good to have a companion. You will buy a house. You will go to IKEA and buy furniture. You will plan to have a family. And one day you will look at your husband or your wife and you say, what the hell is he doing here? Why can't he go shopping for like 5 hours and leave me alone? Your kids will eventually leave you, like you guys, to pursue their own life. And your parents have to sit back and ask, okay, now what the hell do I do? How the hell do I reinvent myself? Problems, human dilemmas will never go away. Okay? Now, supposedly there is a way out in Buddhism, and that's called the third noble truth. So remember, the first is that life is miserable because we have a wrong self-image, and that self has been created by forces that are alien. They make and break us. They create emotions inside us that are for the most part negative, and we use most of our mental energy to figure out what to do with our place in society and life in general. The second is we desire. And the things we desire go back to society, what has been advertised to us, what the id, as Freud would say, or what our basically instincts want for us. And supposedly this third noble truth is there is a way out. So just in case some of you are really, really sad and sorrowful, that how could life be so crappy? You know, you could lighten up a little bit because Buddha has the remedy. There's a way out. What's the fourth one, Chris? That's right. It consists of 8 paths, or 8 steps. It's the 8-step program. If you're an alcoholic, you have 12 steps. If you're a human being, you have 8 steps. So this is how you overcome yourself. Think well. That's the first thing. Be reflective. But be reflective about the right things. And how do you come to this, what he calls right understanding? There is nothing wrong with you going into any relationship, having lots of fun. There is even nothing wrong with you going into relationships and having fun and expecting a whole host of things, as long as you know you have entered a mirage. Have fun, but also know that disappointment is going to come your way relatively soon. Okay? Get married. Know that it will be boring. Get married knowing fully well there will be conflicts. Get married knowing well you will have children and they will make you miserable. And once in a while, of course, you like them. Know that every joy has a sibling called sorrow. Know that every birth has a cousin named death. In every cradle, there is a coffin. So every time you laugh, let there also be a sigh of sorrow. So light and darkness, God and Satan, need to be present, life and death, in everything that you do. Now, some of you may say, well, that's, not a bad way of doing business with life. It is a very bad way of doing business with life. To be able to have joy and sorrow hand in hand means you have to be profoundly detached from joy to be able to see sorrow. You have to see your own life irrelevant so that when death comes your way, you can die peacefully. You can find your conversations with your friends, your relationships, very valuable, at the same time, immensely meaningless. I don't know how anyone can live with this sort of detachment where you're more geared towards darkness than towards light, that you can receive easily and you can let go so easily. Remember, we are not the sort of creatures that can live a solitary life. We are attached. We are born to be attached. And you also need to know that when you spend time with anything, you create history. That history defines who and what you are. Now, if you happen to become friends with someone like the Buddha, that's a great attachment to have. He will make the other parts of your life quite miserable. He will be your only source of inspiration. And then you have to ask yourself a question. How could you have fallen in love with someone who gives you so much darkness? And how could so much darkness contain so much light? You hate being alone, and yet you sit in your room and you write and you meditate and you weep and you pray all alone. And you desire no one's company because your tears have become your companion. Right speech. Now again, keep in mind, I'm not going to give you all 8 steps. I'm just going to tell you the ones that I remember. Now these, by the way, 4 Noble Truths and the 8 steps, they're not really for us. They're meant for very intimate and close disciples or students of the Buddha or students of life. Most of us are just are responsible for the things that we have inherited. So they're not for us. You need to take this class seriously, and you need to take your grade seriously. You need to approach it with a good amount of attachment. You need to be a political animal. You need to be responsible and honor the fact that you are a social creature, programmed, conditioned by society to take this class and your future seriously. That is good for you. Do not walk away from this class saying, whatever. My future means nothing because the Buddha said so. You don't want to become homeless. So remember, these ideas are not for us. Okay? Now, speech For someone like the Buddha who understands the nature of time, who understands the fleeting nature of life, he only likes to talk about things that are serious and have depth, that are meaningful. Not meaningful to me or for me, meaningful to him. The Buddha is the measure of all things, as Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, used to say. He is the canon, he is the law. He doesn't care about my problems with my wife or my kids. If I go to him and ask him, how can I get rid of poverty? He'll probably tell me, well, it's people's relationship with money and power. Change that relationship and poverty will go away. But how the hell do I change that? Well, you have to make them understand that relationship. And once they understand, they become detached. They lose interest. And then poverty will go away. So the idea that those who pick up the sword are going to be perished by the sword, it's a very, very difficult philosophy of life. Okay? So for those of you who are serial daters, you go through people like you go through water. The problem is not people. The problem is your relationship with the idea as to what a relationship is. Okay? Once you understand your relationship with that particular idea, then maybe you will not date so many people. Maybe not date at all. Now, so remember, speech, for the Buddha, it means you only talk about the serious stuff of life. You talk about old age, you talk about sickness, you talk about death. You talk about desire, you talk about attachment, you talk about meaning and value, what it means to be a product of society. So Karl Marx is wrong. We are not alienated because of society. We are not alienated because of capitalism. We are alienated because we don't think well. We don't understand who and what the self is. Money is not the problem. It's our relationship to concepts. Now, if you happen to be just an ordinary person like me, there is nothing wrong with spending your life in gossip. Go to Berkeley, walk into a coffee shop, sit back and watch how people talk about Noam Chomsky, about poverty, about justice, about racial inequality, about education. It's gossip. It's good gossip, but it's gossip nevertheless. It's speech without action. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's good to accept yourself where you are in life. One of the awful things about when a culture begins to become literal, in other words, when you have people who read a lot of books, then what you do is you create institutions like this, and then you have them read Dhammapada, or the sayings of the Buddha, or you have them read the Bible, or you have them read Plato. And then all you do is that people think themselves to be Plato, or the Buddha, or this, or that, when in fact, they're none of those things. All these ideas create mirages that we are something that we are really not. Okay? So it's important to know what gossip is. The Buddha does not give lectures, the Buddha gives sermons. The task of the Buddha is to inspire. And should he find a customer, then that inspiration will be protected until the customer becomes very, very interested. And hopefully after 10 years, that inspiration can morph into understanding. And hopefully after 20 years after that, that understanding can turn into wisdom. And then if you're still alive, that wisdom can be brought down here and put to practice. And 90% of what you think is wisdom is trash. Only 10% of it is good, practical. The rest is just garbage. And the other thing you need to know if you're a serious student of life is the following. Read your audience really, 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 really well. If you're hanging out with someone who enjoys gossip, entertain them. Be kind. Give them gossip. If you're around someone who's a bit more serious, well, be serious. Go to where people are. Okay? And once they become attracted to you, pull them up to where you are. Okay? But don't go to where people are and stay where people are. Last, right livelihood. When someone like Chris comes to me and says, I love philosophy, but I'm going to continue working at so-and-so place that has nothing to do with philosophy. I say to myself, well, your passion for philosophy is going to die at Zachary's, man. You're going to run into customers who suck. You're going to be like hearing all this noise in the shop, people talking about nonsense. How long do you think your passion is going to survive? Now, I'm not going to encourage those of you who are not interested into right livelihood. They can do whatever. But for those who are interested, I'm going to encourage you to do what? Don't make your money, don't make your life by selling pizza or working at Home Depot or getting your PhD in business. If you enjoy ideas, philosophical, reflective ideas, I'm going to encourage you to get your PhD and find the physical environment like this. And once your relationship with ideas become bona fide, serious, intimate, it is true that making $60,000 is not enough to live in Oakland. But your love for ideas will push you into contentment. You will find a way to survive. The idea that man does not live by bread alone is very, very, very true. But it's not the other way around. First, you need bread. Then someone needs to walk into your life and make bread irrelevant. If you just do philosophy and you have no bread at the end of the day, philosophy is no good. It's going to be poison. Okay? Do you have any questions, any comments before we go home? Yes?
Is religion the opiate of the masses?
Is religion a drug through which or with which or by which the masses are put into this hypnotic trance where they are feeling good about themselves, where they are exploited without knowing? Yes? No. Let me explain. Karl Marx doesn't really understand human beings too well. His function was not to understand human beings. His function was to understand the society in which the human beings live. You need meaning in life. You're not Karl Marx. You don't go home, sit, read, think, write. You don't wake up at 3 in the morning, walk around Oakland to figure out homelessness, to figure out poverty, to figure out drugs, alcohol, crime, prostitution. Okay, you have a job, you have rent, you have utilities. You need to pay for food. Your life is busy. So yes, someone like Karl Marx, who has the privilege and the intellectual prowess, and his profession is to go around, observe, come home, sit like a bee and produce honey. Your job is to eat the honey, not to produce honey. Don't have this idea in your head that your job in life is to be able to make honey. That's not who you are. My father, he's a 90-year-old man. You want to get rid of his religion. Give him what? Despair? So you remove the idea of God from people's psyche. You want to give them what? Religion gives them fear. It gives them shame. It gives them a direction. On Sunday, they go to church. On Sunday after church, they invite the entire family to the house. They have compassion, forgiveness. So what does Marx do? Marx looks at the factories housed by these young people and says, oh, well, people say that God rewards those who work really hard down here and get nowhere, and punishes those who exploit. And because people believe in this, you don't have a revolution. There is no social justice. Marx is wrong. Some people need religion. In fact, a lot of people need religion. Look, you don't like me? You don't like this class? Pack your stuff and leave. Show me you're a creative human being, that you don't desire to be exploited. Fear keeps you here. That's your capacity. You don't have the courage to go out there and live life without having a degree, without having money, being okay with having no security. 99% of people need a GPS to life. They need to be shown a path like a sheep. You have some mavericks. You have a Karl Marx. You have a Jesus Christ. You have a Malcolm X. And these are poison for the rest of us because they give us an ideal that we should be something that we don't have a capacity to be. Like Eckhart Tolle. He sits on the stage and he says, no thought, live in the present. Are you goddamn kidding me? I am my past, man. I have children. I worry about their future. So is Eckhart Tolle a poison for people? Absolutely. He's not being real because he's not real. He gives them this ideal that be like me. How many people do you see sitting on the stage next to Eckhart Tolle? No one. It's only him and 1,000 people. How many people do you find following the Buddha very much the way he lived his life? Having a family, having parents, having religion, walking away from the whole thing. Religion is an opium only to individuals who desire to be authentic, and that desire is organic. You can't make a Soren Kierkegaard. Life creates a freak like that. You don't make a Karl Marx. Life makes a freak like that. You don't make a Che Guevara. You don't make a Muhammad Ali. You don't make a Manny Pacquiao. Freaks are just born like that. Now, here is what the freaks will do to you and I. Freaks have this beauty inside them. I like to be like Magnus Carlsen, the chess player, who sees ahead 50 moves. I don't know how the hell he does that. How could you look at a board and see all these moves? How many books can I read? How often can I play chess? And even if I was to spend 24/7 doing all that stuff, did life make me creative enough to have a mind like Magnus? The truth is no. I have the desire to be like him. But the truth is my wiring is not like his. But the curse of people like Marx, the curse of people like Malcolm, is that they infect us with something profound, something absolutely magnificent and beautiful, and they whet our appetite. You know, but the truth is, that is what your capacity allows, just your appetite to be whetted. You know, America is a very interesting place because everybody wants to be the next Steve Jobs. Everybody wants to be an Elon Musk because it is the land of opportunity. And the assumption is that if something is being advertised to you, you can eventually become that piece of advertisement. Why not just accept the fact that you're a customer? Be a good customer. Enjoy being a customer. Read Buddhist books, but when you talk about them, just say, listen, I love these ideas. I will never become these ideas. I love the ideas. If you're not a candle, at least enjoy the light by reading a book. You know, a candle is lit and it gives you light, and every time it's lit and gives you light, it shortens its own life. But you don't see this because you're just engaged in reading the book. And as the candle's light is diminished, it tears. The wax falls. It loses its life. It weeps for the life that it's losing. You are benefiting from the candle's light. Why would you desire to be a candle? Just enjoy what it gives you. If Malcolm X, his life has inspired the movie Malcolm X, enjoy Denzel Washington. Enjoy the narrative. And you want to be inspired, be inspired. But don't go out there saying, I'm the next Malcolm X, I'm the next Jesus Christ. Don't be a complete idiot. It's beneath you. Karl Marx was gifted. Enjoy his ideas because there are lots of truths in those ideas. He demands change. He demands inspiration. I don't have the capacity for that. The best I can do is respect him by reading, respecting him by writing about his ideas, and then at the very end, have a footnote. Say, idea of Karl Marx that I wrote about in page 19 came from Das Kapital, page 28. Don't be a plagiarist. Don't claim ownership to something that's not yours. You know, you walk to Berkeley, all these like people, like Hare Krishna people. You know, a bunch of them do drugs, have no parents, God knows what will happen to them, you know. You know, appropriation is good. It's what we do. We enjoy something we find attractive. But don't walk around saying that you actually understand what you've stolen. That's all. I'm definitely a consumer of Karl Marx, but I will never be like him. And I will never encourage anyone to be like him, because I wouldn't know what it means to be Karl Marx. Some people need drugs to survive. If their drug is religion, let them have it. It's good. You know, my parents have been married for about 70 years. Part of it has to do with religion. I can be proud by saying, yes, religion kept my parents together for 70 years. I don't want to say, oh yeah, my mom was an artist, and my dad, he was an artist too. It was really good. They came to realize they're no good for one another. So they parted ways. So I spent 2 weeks with my dad, 5 weeks with my mom. Now I hate both of them. Well, what good is that? Religion has its function and it's good. Marx is wrong. Anyone else? Yeah.
Earlier you talked about the shelf life of the different desires in different stages. And I was wondering if the gold stage is about having a desire that's beyond, like beyond achievable in a lifetime. I imagine the Buddha wanting to take himself away from all of his desires.
I think whenever you can find a desire that's unreachable, it'll allow your journey to continue. And as long as it remains alive, you keep pursuing it. And one of the things about the gold is you have this thirst for understanding yourself. You have this thirst to understand how you function in society. You have this thirst to figure out why society is the way it is. And it's a thirst that it can never be quenched. It has so many branches, you know, it'll keep you on your toes until you kind of get old and you get exhausted and you just die. But the truth is, not even that is, let me take that back, because, you know, even the Buddha desired to express his understanding to people. He was not completely without desires or attachments, but he had the right desire and the right attachments. He had found his ideas to be meaningful enough, and he was attached to those ideas. You know, that he said the same thing to his audience day after day after day after day. There comes a point where all you do is just repeat, and you get tired after a while. No one is an infinite well of wisdom. And no one is an infinite well of creativity. After a while, you just keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. But, you know, at least you enjoy your own repetition. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, unlike sex and drinking and making money and all the other stuff, you kind of don't hate yourself afterwards. And you have to come to a place where you say, okay, well, there is nothing more creative I can offer, really. This is just what I am. This is my capacity. And that in itself takes time for you to kind of be okay with. Anyone else? Well, you have taken enough of my time. I'm just kidding. Yeah.